Welcome to Gideon Grammar Booklet Level 1F, where the student should complete 2 pages every day. In this book, the student will learn subject and verb agreement, introductory words, the Oxford comma, and combining sentences. Let's start with subject-verb agreement. When using a verb in a sentence, you must make sure it agrees with the subject of the sentence. This chart is located at the front of your booklet on the explanations page under subject-verb agreement. It's showing that if the subject is plural, meaning more than one, then the verb will not have an S. If the subject is singular, meaning only one, then the verb will have an S. Let's look at an example of what this means. One dog barks. Here we have a singular subject, dog. It's just one dog. And then the verb is barks. Notice that there's an S at the end of barks. That's because it has a singular subject. So when the subject is singular, you must add an S onto your verb. Here we have a plural subject. Many dogs bark. How many dogs? There are many, more than one. So on our verb, we need to make sure we do not have an S. Many dogs bark, not many dogs barks. Next, we have introductory words. An introductory word is a word that opens or begins a sentence. It can be found at the beginning of a sentence followed by a comma. Here's a list of just a few introductory words. First, well, yes, and no. Here's an example in a sentence. First, I will bake a cake. Notice the introductory word, and remember to put a comma following the introductory word in the sentence. Another example is yes, comma, it will be chocolate. Notice that yes is capitalized, but do not capitalize the first letter following the comma. Next, we have the Oxford comma, also known as the serial comma. When listing 3 or more words in a sentence, you must separate them with a comma. Here's an example. I like purple, blue, and pink. Let's count how many words we have listed. Purple, 1, blue, 2, pink, 3. So since we have 3 items listed in this sentence, then we need to use the Oxford comma. So we will use commas to separate a list of 3 or more things, and be sure to place the last comma before the conjunction. Some coordinating conjunctions are and, but, and or. In an example, he wants bacon, eggs, and juice. Notice that the last comma comes right before the conjunction. This is the correct way to use these commas in a sentence. And here is the incorrect way to use the Oxford comma. I like my friends, books, and games. Now here, notice that there is no comma before the conjunction. Having no comma before the conjunction causes a problem, and I'll show you why. Take this for instance. I like my friends John and Mary. By writing the sentence like this with no comma before the conjunction, we are saying that your friends are named John and Mary. We are renaming friends by saying John and Mary. So looking back at our original example sentence, I like my friends, books, and games, here, by not using a comma before the conjunction, it looks as if you're saying that your friends are books and games. So we know that you're not trying to say that books and games are your only friends. What you're really trying to say is I like my friends, books, and games. So in order to show that friends, books, and games are 3 separate things, we use commas to separate them, and we place a comma before the conjunction. Lastly, we have combining sentences. Combining sentences involves taking a lot of wordy sentences and combining them into one so that your writing flows more smoothly. So here we have, I have a small car. My car is red. It makes a lot of noise. We have all of these extra words and sentences when we're talking about the same thing, so we can combine these sentences into my small red car makes a lot of noise. So that was just an example. Let's go over the actual rules of combining sentences. Rule number 1. An adjective can be placed in front of the noun. Here's an example. My house is blue, it is also old. You can see how we have two adjectives here, blue and old. Two sentences, too many words, all talking about the same thing. So we take the wordy long sentences, my house is blue, it is also old, and combine it by putting one adjective in front of the noun we're describing. My blue house is old. Then we have rule number 2. Two subjects can be combined with a conjunction. Here's an example of rule number 2. Mark is happy, Sally is happy too. Mark is a subject and Sally is a subject. And in both sentences, we're saying the same thing about them. We're saying that they're happy. So it is okay to combine these two subjects with a conjunction by saying Mark and Sally are happy. And lastly, we have rule number 3. Two verbs can be combined with a conjunction. Here's an example. I learn at school. I also play at school. Learn and play are both verbs, so we can combine those using a conjunction and say, I learn and play at school.